Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Wader. You know the man next to me, or, well, I don't know which way I'm pointing. I don't know how it's going to look for him. But the man next to me is Austin Hill. Yeah, we're on Zoom today. Austin is not having to do it on his phone this time, so that's good to see.
Fortunately.
Very good to see. But if you want some entertainment while also learning about college football, go give that episode a watch. It's out on YouTube. You already know we talk about all the big games coming up this weekend, multiple ranked head-to-head ranked matchups there, our bets of the week. I had a phenomenal week in college football. Not nearly the same for you. I'm on the comeback, Austin. I'm going to catch up to you now, so you better be ready.
Yeah, I got to go back to a more measured approach, get back to my roots, and just get back watching film and do what we do best.
Get back, gotta watch the film. Pride yourself as a man of faith.
Yeah,
All right, but enough talk about that. Let's get into the NFL. And of course, we have a lot of storylines to talk about for this week, way more than we usually do for week two. But before, of course, we have our annual biggest winners and losers from this past week in the NFL, Austin. So give it to me. Who's your biggest winner from this past week in the NFL?
I'm going to say the Arizona Cardinals. Look at this team. Kyler Murray, new coaching staff, new front office, I believe, or newer front office, newer coaching staff, and they found belief in this guy. You know, they said it last year when he was rehabbing from the ACL. Kyler's going to be the guy. He comes in and he had a great week one, and even better week two, where we saw Marvin Harrison Jr. finally get going. And it goes to show what this team can be in the future once they start actually fleshing out this roster, especially on the offensive and defensive lines. But this is such a positive start for a team that goes out and they defeats, even with the injuries for the Rams, goes out and beats a team that some people thought might compete for an NFC wildcard spot this year.
He absolutely did destroy him. Shout out Kyler, my fantasy quarterback in one of my leagues. I appreciate the 30-point performance there. I'll take the more base one. I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints. Austin, the Saints might have an offense now.
Yeah,
This is the second week in a row, over 40 points. Clint Kubiak might be the greatest offensive play caller in the history of football. You could overreact and say that from these first 2 weeks. But no, the Saints offense looks good. Derek Carr throwing the football down the field looks good. Alvin Kamara looks incredible once again. And you combine that with what was already a solid defense. I mean, if they can keep this up, they're going to be a fun one to keep an eye on over the entire course of this NFL season. But now, Austin, we got plenty, and I mean plenty of good options for your biggest loser of the week. What you going with here?
oh, this is kind of a tougher one for me to choose. Like you said, good several options. But to me, I'm going to go ahead and say one that I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit anyway. Um, that's the Miami Dolphins. Look, this is a team that's built to be a contender. Obviously, they've pushed all the chips in. They say we're going all in, making an effort. And now to lose Tua to get another concussion and what could potentially be the end of his career. Obviously, they've put him on the IR. And I personally think that that's to give him the most amount of time to be able to consider his future and consider his options, as well as if he does decide to continue to play football, giving him the maximum amount of time to recover. But it's still a huge blow for a team that has invested a lot in this guy, believe in this guy, built their team around this guy, and now they're going to lose him, and they haven't invested much into the backup quarterback endeavor.
Yeah, I mean, they did sign Tyler Huntley the other day, which is some more we'll talk about here. For me, again, a lot of good options to go with. We're going to talk about one, so I won't mention them. I'll take the Baltimore Ravens as one. This is a team, again, was the number one seed in the AFC last year. I think what? They only lost 4 games last year, correct? If I'm correct there. They're off to an 0-2 start. Ugly performance against the Chiefs, uglier performance against the Raiders, and they did the John Harbaugh special. Double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. You think you got it all wrapped up, and they blow it at the very end. So now are they 0-2? The Bengals also 0-2, and the Steelers 2-0. And you look at what could happen this weekend, and this is totally not biased to a Steeler fan here anyway. You look at potentially 3-0 start for the Steelers. Ravens have a tough opponent. There's a realistic world where they could be 0-3. Commanders, I think, could give the Bengals a challenge. They could be 0-3. Browns, they're playing the Giants, so they'll probably be a game behind us. But
Yeah.
those two being 3 games back of the division is what the Steelers need early on here. But the Ravens got to figure out things on their offensive line because that has been the issue. But let's get into the topics now. And you hinted at our very first one. Of course, from Thursday night, Bills dominate the Dolphins. But the main storyline, obviously, is Tua suffering yet another concussion. Even though they said this is I believe his third or fourth officially diagnosed one, we both know there have been multiple times he's had a concussion, and the whole concussion protocol thing in the NFL was called into question. So really, you got to count this as like his fourth or fifth one since he's gotten in the NFL. And you know, Austin, you mentioned it. I mean, this is severe, and I know he's already said he doesn't plan to retire. They put him on IR. He's going to talk to a neurologist about this. But yeah, you have to consider everything on the table, and not just be thinking about what's going to happen in the next 3 years in the NFL, but the next 20, 30 years maybe of my life after football.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at where that's gotten some guys. You look at a guy like Jim McMahon, former Bears quarterback. He if you watch the 85 Bears 30 for 30, he delves into a lot of the head trauma that he experiences where, it led to early onset like Alzheimer's and dementia for him. He wakes up a lot of the time, he doesn't remember who he is. He doesn't know where he is, and then all of a sudden he just snaps back into real life. And I think that that's something you absolutely have to consider. I'm not saying you should call it a career. It's not my fault. I've never played organized tackle football, so I have no experience. And I'm not a neurologist, so I can't give you perspective from that point either. But I certainly think you should talk to professionals and consider, how this could affect you for the rest of your life, because I mean, this is serious. And I saw a thing that said this is his fourth concussion in the last 5 years. And but like you said, we've seen plenty of times where the concussion protocol of the past, obviously because of Tua, they have actually reformed it in the last couple of years. But where the concussion protocol has failed players like Tua, and though there were definitely more times in his career that he's had a concussion that have completely gone under the radar. So I absolutely agree with you. I think that this is something that is serious and should be considered. But at the end of the day, it's his call. I just hope whatever decision he makes, he's 100% confident in the potential aftermath and the outcomes that come with making that decision.
Yeah, I really think that's what it's got to come down to. I'm not trying to tell him how to run his career either. I will say though, and I'm not saying this is the main reason behind it because he's gotten concussion from several different things. We gotta learn to slide. We gotta learn quarterbacks that gotta learn to slide. I know it's fun. The athletic quarterback taking off running. It's like, what if I split this tackle? What if I run over this guy? There are sometimes you just gotta live to fight another play and not go all out. Because not to me, I think whenever Tua tried to truck the Bills defender in the third quarter of that game, I think it was already 24-7 or something like that. No. So I mean, not to be mean and say, give up. I mean, just learn to slide. Everyone learns to slide. Bring in a baseball coach, teach them how to slide. We all been through this. That knowing how to slide will be helpful for your future as an NFL quarterback.
Absolutely. And I think one more thing this calls into question is look, the NFL, obviously, every year, every offseason, we're trying to figure out ways to make the game safer while not completely destroying the game. But one thing that's been something that they've been on the last couple of years is trying to reform the helmet, the design of the helmet, because clearly it's doing more harm than good. Players are still getting incredibly severe head injuries, left and right, and getting a helmet driven into your knee, as we saw if you watch Hard Knocks, uh, it can completely destroy your knee. So I think, and look, we have the introduction of Guardian caps being able to be worn in the game. So clearly, a softer material I think might be needed for NFL helmets. I think there needs to be serious considerations into the future of how NFL helmets are designed and the materials that they're made out of, because clearly what helmets are now just isn't working.
No, it's really not. I think so. I mean, we've seen some of them, some people be like, you can make fun of me all you want. I want to be safe out there. You can make fun of me for the cap all you want, but that's what I'm going to wear out there. So I'm right there with you with that. Let's move to our next topic now, which of course comes out of the saddest place in the NFL right now, and that's Carolina. The Panthers deciding after the week 2 loss to the Chargers, Bryce Young has officially been benched for Andy Dalton. Of course, Dave Canales said they do not plan to trade Bryce Young in this situation. But it's clear, 2 weeks into it, they already want to see, kind of the future, but, kind of like discuss the future of Bryce Young there in Carolina. Because, I mean, not to be mean to Andy Dalton in any sort of way, he is not your long term answer. So I'm curious what this kind of move, this benching could do for someone like a Bryce Young.
Yeah, hopefully for him, it allows him to find some time to get a little bit more comfortable with the new playbook, and his teammates. And maybe in the meantime, Andy Dalton can help this team, to everybody else on this team, find their footing in game. But I'm going to be completely honest with you. This feels like just the just the lowest and easiest way to try and change things and solve problems. If you think that this problem is on Bryce Young, whether you're a fan, in the media, a coach, or in the front office of the Panthers, if any of this you think is on Bryce Young, then I think you've just made I mean, you should just get out of the sports business. You don't know what you're talking about. Look, people have outside of the Panthers fandom, just in NFL media and NFL fans in general, or pretending like we don't know why Bryce Young was the number one pick a year ago, and that's just not the case. This guy was talented, but look, he has no offensive line. He has no weapons. Adam Thielen is not a weapon. This team is just bad. You want to see guys who make mistakes because they're not playing great football, and they're making just bad decisions every play. Go watch Will Levis play the last 2 weeks. That's a guy who is making, I mean, just the worst decisions you could ever make. And he's got play. He's the guy who has no excuses. Look, the offensive line maybe necessarily isn't the best there, but Joe Walt's been fantastic so far. He's got all kinds of weapons around him with Pollard, Tajay Spears, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd. I mean, these are NFL veterans who are still very, very talented. So you want to look at a guy who's making just boneheaded decisions and bad mistakes. Look at Will Levis. But when you look at a guy like Bryce Young, scrambling around, just trying to survive, trying not to get killed every single play, and then throwing an interception, I think that's a lot different. Um, I think this starts from the ground up with the Panthers. Maybe the NFL should just relegate the Panthers until they can get new ownership and new management. Because it's just been a sad, sad story since Cam Newton's last year, before he was waived, I should say. It really is a problem with the Panthers, and this is just the easiest solution that leads to no real change. But to the fans, it looks like we're doing something as we're benching the starter quarterback for the backup, and really that's not going to solve anything because that's not the problem with this team.
No, I mean, this is just like you said, it's an organizational failure, is the right word I have used on many different people asking me about it. I'm just gonna be flat honest with you. Deontay Johnson. I have a Deontay Johnson jersey in my house, autographed jersey. Cool guy, really good guy. But if that is your biggest move to bring in a weapon for Bryce Young, that's not making a big move at all. It's not a big move. And I know Xavier Leggett or Leggett, however the heck you pronounce it, their first round pick, he really hasn't gotten that much involved in the offense either. Because, like you said, they're using Adam Thielen out there. Not to be mean to Adam Thielen, but at this point, Adam Thielen in his career is not a top 2 receiver. He should not be a top 2 receiver on an NFL roster. And not only that, you look at the defensive side, they've scrapped any good defensive pieces from this roster. I mean, and just talent in general. Christian McCaffrey, Brian Burns, we've seen now. Um, Shoot, I'm trying to think. I want to say there might have been one more. I'm trying to think who that was. Um, I don't know, but Derek Brown out for the year now, of course, with an injury. There's not talent here. The GM has failed them. The ownership has failed him, and I mean just wholeheartedly. David Tepper, since he has been the owner, is easily now that Dan Snyder is out of the NFL, easily the worst owner in the NFL.
Yeah.
Going into restaurants, taking the hats off the owners because they had a sign out saying let the GM run the draft, throwing your drink on fans because you lost a game, not knowing or just saying flat out, yeah, we wanted to draft another quarterback, but we end up with Bryce Young. Um, if you have that kind of leadership up there, that trickles down to GMs, assistant GMs, all the way down to the coaching staff in the building, and even to the team. And listen, again, I'm not saying Bryce Young has played well. Obviously, the stats say that he has not played well. But you're absolutely right. Anyone who comes out and says Bryce Young is the only reason this team is bad, really? So you're saying if we put Patrick Mahomes on this team with this talent of the Panthers, he would do fine and lead the Panthers to a Super Bowl. If you're saying that and he goes out and do that, then this is a totally different story. But it won't happen because there's not enough talent on this roster. They traded away all their high draft picks for Bryce Young. And guess what? You trade away all your high draft picks, it makes it insanely hard to get talented football players on your roster. So now this year, second round pick belongs to the Bears, but that first round pick, if you truly do still believe in Bryce Young, and I really don't know what quarterback they would even consider looking at, maybe Quinn Ewers is the only one, but he has injury problems we've seen the last couple of years as it may be a big question for him. Um, but you need to get him a weapon. And that's why I say if they have the number one pick, I don't care if your favorite quarterback is on the board. Travis Hunter should be the number one pick in this NFL draft. Get get Bryce Young someone who can throw the ball to. I know he doesn't know if he's going to play wide receiver or corner. If he tries to play both ways in the NFL, I don't know if it'll work out as good as college, but to me, you just got to get more talent around. You know, you were aggressive trading for Bryce Young. Be aggressive going out to get other pieces. Be aggressive instead of just looking at a roster going, yeah, Bryce Young, second year quarterback. Carry this piece of garbage with you. So, yeah, a lot needs to change in Carolina there. I said personally on the radio, I said they just need to nuke the franchise. Just get everything out of the building. All coaches, all members of the staff, all members in that work inside the stadium, just clear everything out and bring in new people. And then maybe in a couple of years they could have something successful. But yeah, okay, that's enough of our Carolina Panthers rant. Let's move
Yeah.
on to the next topic, which is, of course, Austin, injuries. There have been a ton of injuries so far in this NFL season. Specifically, we'll talk about some of the major ones. Number one on the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco. That is a big one. He is out 6 to 8 weeks minimum with a serious injury. You look at the Rams, I mean, I'll go down the line and name them. Cooper Kupp, most likely heading to IR. I don't know if he's officially. Puka Nakua on IR. Tyler Higbee is dealing with injuries. 4 or 5 guys on the O line dealing with injuries, all of them pretty much on IR. You got multiple guys in the secondary on IR and other guys who could be on there in the future. Not to mention the 49ers. You have no Christian McCaffrey, but first 6 games at least. Debo Samuel now is going to be out multiple weeks. Apparently, there was a report that there was issues with George Kittle, and he was a limited participant in practice, so he might be out for a bit of time for the Niners as well. And then you got the Chargers. You got Justin Herbert. I could go on and on for an hour about these serious injuries to these players, but it's clear, Austin, there's so many injuries this early in the year. We haven't seen this bad of injuries this early in the season. Really, I think since that 2020 COVID season when there was no preseason and didn't give them time. And in my opinion, this could be completely up to me. You wonder if just not getting players any reps in the preseason is having any effect on this.
Yeah, it's just I really don't know. And like I said earlier with the Tua thing, clearly what we're trying to use right now to protect players. with helmets and such and new rules. It isn't working. So if we want the game to be safer, we need to find better ways to protect the players. And look, it starts with getting every field to be grass. When is that going to happen? Get rid of the artificial turf, put grass. FIFA regulation. Most of these stadiums in 2026 will have to have real grass anyway. You might as well do it. The FIFA World Cup comes to the US in 2026. Most of these NFL stadiums will be hosting those games. FIFA rules specifically real grass. MetLife will be getting real grass, at least for FIFA. You might as well change the rule. I don't understand. I don't understand what the hangup is. It is insane how we see guys time and time again play on these turf fields and sustain the most brutal, horrific knee injuries, non-contact that you've ever seen in your entire life. And then you begin to wonder why the NFL defends this so hard. I don't understand it. They say, according to our research, injury rates happen on the same amount of turf. Yeah, maybe injury rates in general. Well, what about non contact knee injuries? What about lower body non contact injuries? I guarantee it's a 1000% increase on artificial turf. It's just no comparison. And I know I've had this rant on here before, but I'm just sick and tired of the NFL pretending that the things that they're doing are about player safety because it's not working. And if they cared about the player safety, that'd be the first thing we would change.
I'm right there with you on that. I mean, look, the stories, especially, I mean, like you mentioned, the East Rutherford, where the Jets and the Giants play, they're getting real grass for the FIFA World Cup. That place is known as as major injury central in the NFL. I mean, I think back to that 49ers Jets game in COVID 2020. How many Niners players left with non-contact injuries? Three or four
Yep.
in that game? I mean, it's
Bosa, Richard
ridiculous.
Sherman, two of their star defensive players.
Solomon
Uh,
Thomas got injured in that game,
yep.
non-contact. Matt Breida, I think Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, it was ridiculous for just one game of football.
Yeah, it was insane. And didn't they the next week have to play the Giants also in MetLife and had a bunch more injuries?
That might have happened. 2020 was such a long time ago that there's like parts of it I remember, and that was one I just was like, geez Louise, it's the injury bowl of all injury bowls. But listen, I'm with you. They got to get this sorted out with the natural grass on the field. That is what has to happen in these stadiums. Turf, listen, I think turf, when you look at it, it looks great. It looks creative. It's a great idea, you would think, until you're actually getting tackled on the football field in this. And so I know it's a cheaper thing than doing the natural grass, you think, because it don't have to keep an eye on overnight, don't gotta, handle the grass. But it needs to be done. It needs to be done. That helps prevent more injuries. And also, like I say, I know you want to limit the preseason. They limit it down to 2 or 3 games now, but I think players need to get more involved in preseason games. I'm not saying have them go out there and play the whole game, but I'm talking multiple drives, multiple drives. Big thing with the Carolina Panthers. Their Bryce Young didn't play in the preseason until they played the Buffalo Bills and their third string guys for one drive, and then he was out. I'm not saying that's the main reason why, but that's a perfect example of it. So between the turf, getting rid of turf, and getting guys more actively involved, getting more game reps before the actual season begins, to me, that's the best thing. And I mean, there's even reports, there's always rumors. They're trying to get rid of the preseason any day now. They need to keep it around. It might not be interesting for us to watch, but coaches need to realize this is the best way to get them some practice for in game. I know you worry about injuries, but it is a roster. It's not one player teams.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's nothing, unfortunately, there's nothing that compares to actually getting out on the field and getting ready to go. That's why these preseason games exist. And I think, I don't know if you were so much on it, but when, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago when they first really started to consider changing the preseason, I said, get rid of it. Oh, it's boring. I don't want to watch it. But, the more and more I've grown, the more and more I watch the game, I agree with what you're saying. Look, it's about player safety. And look, if you don't play any game, if you just come straight from practicing and maybe you're not going half speed, but obviously the defense isn't hitting you as hard as they can in practice. Um, quarterbacks aren't getting hit in practice. You go out and you go full speed, watch how fast that falls apart. And look, again, these are just things. With again, I talked about earlier the helmets and needing to change our helmets in football, but that's something that's still being figured out. That's something that we don't have an exact science to right now. But the things that we know with facts that can be provided, um, that stuff has got to be implemented. That stuff is stuff we know the effects of, like with turf and grass, and we know what needs to be done, and we have the ability to do it. It's just about being cheap. Like you said, it's cheaper to keep turf than it is to keep grass, and that's the only reason it hasn't changed.
Yeah, really. But another one of our rants in the book. Hope you enjoyed those rants there. We're going to talk about some of the games here from week 2, and we will start with a game that we both got correct on this one. A big matchup in the NFC. Tampa Bay going into Detroit, winning 20-16. Look, me and you were both on point with this. We both had Tampa Bay in this game. We both felt very confident about Tampa Bay going into Detroit and getting the win. And really, what helped them? Their defense, forcing turnovers on Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield, not only being effective passing the football, but running that football as well. And this is why you were much higher on Tampa than I was in the preseason about why you thought this team could be an elite team in the NFC. They proved why in this week 2 game.
Yeah, again, I think a lot of people downplayed the way this team was going to be coming into the season because they didn't do a whole bunch of upgrading. They just did a great job in retaining. And then they lost to Dave Canales to the Panthers, obviously. And people thought, oh, he's the guy that figured it out with Baker. Is Baker going to have the same success? I never doubted that. I think I never doubted Baker.
Me neither.
Once after that first year in Cleveland, I thought that it was a mistake. I'm not going to say that I didn't think necessarily Deshaun Watson was maybe better at the time of moving on, but I didn't think that Baker wasn't a starter in this league, and certainly he's coming out and proved that this year. But that's the thing I liked so much about this Tampa team. They started off a little slow, but they got it figured out. And now they have chemistry and they come into a second year where they don't have to figure each other out and they can just play at 100%, knowing each other and getting the job done. This is an electric team, and this is going to be one of the best teams in the NFC this year.
All right, you heard it here from him. Yeah, for me, the Lions. Listen, I said this on that show. The Lions. It always seems to me after they get like a big win or like a great win, they always seem kind of to dip a little bit that next week or two. However, I do know Dan Campbell, and they are great off of losses so far under him. So I'm expecting a really good performance from them. Our next game we're going to talk about here, we have got an upset that not many of us saw coming. The Vikings taking down the 49ers. And of course, we already talked about the 49ers injuries. So let's talk about the Vikings and Austin, the return of Sam Darnold to getting some big time plays. Justin Jefferson, getting him involved. It's been a great performance. Vikings now 2-0, out in first place in that NFC North.
Yeah, it sounds like, I've been right on the money about this NFL season so far. I said, maybe this could be an opportunity for Sam Darnold to become this year's Baker Mayfield, to refine his footing in a new system and just kind of lock in. And now I will say I wasn't 100% positive that that was going to happen, but this is an opportunity. Obviously, we're early in the season and things can change, but right now, Sam Darnold, look, he's got nothing to lose. This is exactly what I was saying. There's nothing to lose for Sam Darnold. He is going to be the guy pretty much no matter what happens for the Vikings this season because J.J. McCarthy's out. As long as he stays healthy, and it doesn't matter if he throws 100 interceptions over the course of the season, he'll probably start for the entire season because they just need somebody to get them through this year until J.J. McCarthy is back for next year. Um, and so he has absolutely got nothing to lose, and he's got some decent weapons around him. So now he's taking advantage of that opportunity and proving the kind of quarterback he can be with weapons and a system that believes in him.
Yeah, definitely. Again, something that some teams can learn from. Looking at the Jets whenever he was there, looking at Carolina, getting into the right system, getting some talent around him. I mean, Justin Jefferson still being Justin Jefferson with Sam Darnold back there at quarterback. So absolutely. Our next one we're going to talk about, the big one from the afternoon, Chiefs taking down the Bengals 26-25. Listen, we both say it whenever these two go head to head, it's always a close game that will come down to the wire. And it did come down to the wire. The difference being, once again, Cincinnati, doing a costly defensive penalty that leads to Kansas City getting into field goal range and Harrison Bucker knocking through a field goal. And I know me and you talked about it. We've talked a bit about this and your opinion on it. But once again, it comes down to Cincinnati, really, in my opinion, not being disciplined enough in these late game situations.
Look, I'm not going to disagree with you that that was a pass interference penalty. Um, by the letter of the law, he's early. Throw the flag. My thing is, I feel like we see this so much with Kansas City. It's so rinse and repeat. And I just don't feel like those bang bang close plays go in anyone else's favor. If this is the Eagles versus the Bengals, I don't think that flag is thrown, no matter who's on offense and who's on defense in that situation. I just it just feels. And look, I don't think the Chiefs aren't great. And look, I think the Chiefs probably were going to drive the field. They had too much time. I think they were going to drive the field and win that game no matter what. Cincinnati completely mishandled that fourth quarter, especially Jamar Chase. So I'm not going to make excuses for Cincinnati. It's just it feels it feels like it happens so much. And maybe that's just because I want the Chiefs to lose every week, and sometimes I just don't want to see a dynasty unfolding if it's not in Chicago. So maybe that plays into it a little bit, but it just feels like we see it so much. But I'm going to get off of that and off the penalty because, like I said, this penalty did not decide this game. Zach Taylor did not call a great fourth quarter. Look, I'm not anti Zach Taylor like you are.
I'm gonna
Um,
say I'm guilty as charged of being
but
anti Zach Taylor.
But for an offensive coach, he mishandled the way he called this fourth quarter. They threw the ball way too much, especially on that drive after the Jamar Chase mishap that took him out of field goal range. They had a chance to run some clock down, and they didn't. They tried to get down the field and score again. And while I think that should have been something that was on your mind, you should have run the ball and at least taken some more clock down. I just think this game was mismanaged, and obviously Jamar Chase yanking them out of a big scoring opportunity with just an egregious penalty. I don't know what he was doing. I thought that he was looking for a like a face mask because I thought they grabbed the inside of his helmet. But when I saw the replay, that didn't happen. And then it comes to find out on the sideline, he's complaining for a hip drop tackle. What? Uh, I didn't like the rule when they instated it because either every tackle is going to be flagged or the officials are not going to throw the flag at all, which so far through the season we've seen that it's so bang bang that officials can't throw the flag. They cannot see it in real time. And so there, I don't think it was a hip drop tackle to begin with. But even if it was, the officials didn't see it. It's 3rd and 2, Jamar Chase. Get up and get the first down on the ground and score some points. It was bad for the Bengals at the end of this game.
I will not deny it. I am a Zach Taylor hater. Have been
Yeah.
since the beginning of this dynamic duo on this bowl take. I just think that Joe Burrow and them have done a tremendous job carrying this guy for the past couple of years. Truly is astonishing. But like you said, the Bengals just some bad play calling late. But I will say something I've seen so far through 2 weeks, and honestly, it's only 2 weeks. Patrick Mahomes has not impressed me at all so far this year. He has not been that impressive to me. He has made some horrible decisions throwing the football. And listen, I'm not trying to say he's not a great quarterback, but through these first 2 weeks, there are some things I'm a tad bit worried about, especially like we talked about Isaiah Pacheco, who is the main catalyst of that Chiefs offense being out for at least 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, and the thing I look at with that is, you look at this running back room. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he hasn't been super great since that first season, and since Pacheco really came in, but he's hurt, so they can't even call on him. It's going to be calling on Carson Steele. It looks like he's going to take a lot of the snaps with Samaje Perine, unless rumors have it they're trying to bring in Kareem Hunt back for a little reunion. But even so, if Carson Steele has had a tough time starting the season holding on to the football. So now you're taking big leaps of faith with Samaje Perine, who's been an all right kind of, substitute back in his NFL career so far. And Carson Steele, who's young, a rookie, undrafted, had a tough time holding on to the ball. They're going to have to throw the ball more in this game. And like you said, Patrick Mahomes has made some questionable decisions to start the season. He's really going to have to lock in and show us the Patrick Mahomes we're used to seeing if this team wants continued success while the run game is a little bit hampered.
And we'll have to wait and see there. You talked about mismanagement. We'll add another team here in a second, but before that, Sunday Night Football, Texans take down the Bears 19-13. And I think really takedown is what perfectly described this game for the Texans defense. Caleb Williams had virtually no time to make many decisions behind that offensive line. Um, and I will say, I'll add one more thing, and then the floor is yours, Austin. The Bears defense, I'm telling you, you guys have a better offense, but right now y'all are literally the Steelers through these first couple weeks. Your defense is phenomenal, and the offense is just, when is it going to click? When is it going to click?
Yeah, honestly, as a Bears fan, I'm not mad about how this game went. I was actually worried that we were going to get blown out in Sunday Night Football and we were going to look stupid. But I'm really happy with the way the defense played. Like you said, this is a great defense. They showed out. They limited one of the most lethal offenses in the NFL, a Super Bowl contender, held them to what 19. So I'm happy there. And even on offense, Caleb Williams looked really, really good in this game. Look, like you said, he didn't have a lot of time. But even just the difference between last week and this week, in the first quarter, he had better numbers than he did all of week one passing the football. He was so much better in the pocket. He didn't try to do all the fancy things with his legs, and he did what you're supposed to do in the NFL. In college football, sometimes you can run around and run around and run around and then take off. In the NFL, you have to diagnose in 2 seconds whether you're going to throw the football or whether you're going to run. You take any longer than that, and you're going to get sacked every single time. I think he did much better at knowing when he needed to take off and when he needed to throw the football. The biggest issue that's been the issue since Justin Fields was the quarterback is play calling and the center of the offensive line. Our interior offensive line is so bad, except Tevin Jenkins. The tackles are great. Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones have been phenomenal through their beginning of their careers in Chicago. Tevin Jenkins, when healthy, has been phenomenal. But what are we doing at center and right guard? Nate Davis doesn't practice all offseason just like he didn't last year. He doesn't play in the preseason at all. Then he plays in this regular season. He's been abysmal. You wonder why. He has not practiced all season. Until he practices, get him off the field. And at center, what does it take to sign a competent center in the NFL? We've been through Cody Whitehair, Lucas Patrick, who just had a phenomenal week with who was that? The Saints. He's the Saints center now. I was trying to think who he plays for. Saints center now. So what were we doing with Lucas Patrick? And now we've got Ryan Bates. I mean, come on. Poles has done a great job building this team. He's got to bite the bullet and sign some good offensive linemen. He's just got to do it. That's my biggest issue with this Bears team. Everywhere else, I think we look great. Shane Waldron got to start taking some chances, and he's got to stop. My biggest issue is that he favors guys that he coached in Seattle. Travis Homer is playing way too much. I don't know why he's playing at all. We have DeAndre Swift, we have Khalil Herbert, and we have Roshan Johnson. There's no room for Travis Homer to be on the field when all those guys are healthy. And Gerald Everett's the same way. I liked the move to bring in Gerald Everett as a tight end too, but he's playing more snaps than Cole Kmet, which is completely unjustified. Cole Kmet's making more money, is a better player, but it just comes down to I don't know if it's just because he favors these guys because he coached both of them in Seattle, or if it's just because he thinks that they fit his scheme better. I don't know what it is, but it has to stop. We have to be playing our best players, especially when Keenan Allen is not playing right now. Give the rookie the best chance to succeed. This is a good team, and it will be a good team. But it cannot be a great team until we get out of our own way.
Right. It's safe to say, right on the money with most of that. And yeah, you complaining about the offensive coordinator. Y'all really are turning into the Steelers here. Maybe y'all be like us and have consistent winning seasons. Like like
Yeah, I
like
like
like that.
that. I could get over it then.
Yeah, but we talked about a second ago Chiefs and Bengals with poor time management. Philadelphia Eagles would like to have a word with you, Austin. Falcons somehow, some way go into Philly and win 22-21 on Monday Night Football. And I heard from some Eagles fan I do a show with who had an interesting reason and said that this was all on Saquon Barkley, and I could not disagree anymore. This was poor management late in the game, running the football. You waste more time. You don't give Kirk Cousins time. You're playing prevent defense against the Falcons, and I've heard on shows I've watched, prevent defense only prevents you from winning games. Doing that late in drives costs them. Getting Atlanta and Kirk Cousins easy completion after easy completion, all in all the way down the field. And then the Jalen Hurts interception. Look, they still had a timeout or two left. He's forcing it down the field there. But one thing we talked about in the preseason, that if the Eagles lost some questionable games early on, Nick Sirianni would come into question. These are the kind of games that we're talking about here, Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to agree with you here. Look, Saquon did make a kind of a blunder at the end of this game. But similar to what I said about Bryce Young, this is the kind of easy scapegoat answer to why this team lost this game. Look, you got to manage the clock better. And look, I thought in week one, we saw an Eagles team that looked a lot more like the Eagles from the beginning of the season last year than it did at the end of the season. This looked like an Eagles team from the end of last year where they just kind of fell apart. We have got to see some consistency out of this team. And like you said, if we can't get it, Sirianni might be out the door because it just feels like this team is lost under his direction right now.
Yeah, it definitely is. But they have a chance to make up for it in their game this week. And speaking of that, let's get into some game picks for this week 3 in the NFL. And let's start the 12 o'clock slate. Yep, we got some 2-0 matchups that we totally expected. The first one, Chargers and Steelers going on at Heinz Field. Somehow both of these teams are 2-0 entering this game. Listen, this game, I'm just going to be honest with you. Both teams like to run the football. Both teams have solid defenses, good coaching. They're not going to screw the game up. This game is going to be disgusting, Austin, and I cannot wait to watch every second of it.
Yeah, Easton Stick, Justin Fields, going to be a phenomenal ball game. Look, this is going to come down to the defenses. I like Justin Fields. I think he's going to get better and better as the season goes on. But I certainly think that defenses are going to be prevalent in this one. But I'm going to take the Steelers. I think missing Justin Herbert is going to be a big factor against the Chargers in this one. Obviously, they lost a lot of, they got rid of a lot of pieces this offseason. And so the pieces you still have, you're really relying on. And when one of those guys is out, especially being replaced with a guy like Easton Stick, who we haven't seen a lot of in the NFL, I think that could lead to some trouble, especially against maybe the best defense in the NFL.
Even if Justin Herbert does play, and he has that high ankle sprain. So even if he does play, I do question his mobility, especially going against that Steelers defense. And also, I am completely biased. So I'm going to pick the Steelers in this game. Just end of discussion there. But if Justin Herbert is completely healthy and he's able to go out there and play somewhat healthy, I think the Chargers have a good chance of winning. But I don't know. I don't know. So the next 2-0 matchup we got here, Houston going on the road to Minnesota to take on the 2-0 Vikings here. And, we saw a really good defense go out and shut down this Houston offense a bit. Now they're playing a Minnesota defense that kind of shut down the 49ers offense for most of their game. What are you thinking about this one that's going to go down in Minneapolis?
Oh man, this is going to be an interesting game. Like you said, some 2-0 matchups that we did just not expect to see. Obviously, I think the Texans were a team we expected to be at this point, but the Vikings not so much. Look, I saw resilience in this Texans team. Look, we saw that even when they faced a great defense like they did in Chicago, that their defense was going to hold it down, and they would still be able to find a couple big plays to win games. And I think with how talented Nico Collins is at being this big frame wide receiver number two that takes advantage of the weaker cornerback matchup with the best corners being on Diggs and being on Tank Dell, that this team is just really hard to stop. And I just don't see the Vikings defense being able to come in, even with being at home, just come out and slow down this lethal passing offense. And, you know, maybe Joe Mixon will be back healthy. But if not, I think that would give the Vikings a better chance. But I'd still take the Texans in this one.
I'm also going to take the Texans, but I'm very hesitant here. I mean, we've seen the great run that they've had, and obviously, I think, like you mentioned, the secondary matchup going on there could be a key. Same going the other way around. How's Houston going to defend Justin Jefferson? That will be a big question. But I'm with you. I'm going to take the Texans to win this game. Let's look to some one more noon kickoff. Then we're going to go to some afternoon football. Eagles heading to New Orleans to take on the Saints. And the Eagles, if you want a spot to kind of redeem yourself, here you go against the best offense in the NFL through 2 weeks. I imagine the Superdome's going to be as fired up as it's been probably in a couple of years with how they've started this season. Can this Eagles defense slow down the Saints offense, Austin?
I really don't know, but I don't think this is going to be a game about defenses. I think this is going to be a game about offenses. And you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints in this game. I think this will be a closer game, but I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring than we're used to seeing an NFL game being. But I'm going to go with the Saints. They look like they've got it all together right now. They look confident. And I think after a big loss last week at home at the end of the game, coming in on the road, maybe, confidence is a little low. Coming into a rocking Superdome with the 2-0 Saints, they get another big win to push themselves to 3-0.
This one, before week 2, I felt pretty confident about picking the Eagles on this game. But now, yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to ride with the New Orleans Saints in this game. I do think the Eagles maybe could slow down if their defensive line can get any sort of pressure on Derek Carr. He's been getting the ball out of his hands a lot quicker, thus giving him more chances. So, yeah, definitely I'm going to ride with the Saints with you. Let's head to the afternoon slate. We got 2 games in this afternoon slate. First off, Detroit Lions heading to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Obviously, with what we've seen for the first 2 weeks from the Cardinals, this is intriguing. They host the Detroit Lions, who are looking to bounce back from losing to Tampa. Of course, Lions are favored here, and like I said, have always done good after a loss under Dan Campbell. But what are you hoping to see in this matchup?
Man, I think this is going to be a fun matchup, especially after what we saw from the Cardinals last week, how dangerous they can really be. I'm hoping to see really a fun game, though. Look, Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. Have clearly shown what kind of exciting duo they can be in this league. But with the Lions, they're looking to get back, playing some better defense. They got down really fast in that game against Tampa Bay. And I think that's really the big thing that cost them. I think had that game been a little bit closer, they could have surged back a little. I mean, they did make a great comeback at the end of this game. Would have been a little bit easier. They probably could have won it. So the defense got to come out and be better. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Arizona Cardinals in this one, have a little fun with it early in the season. I like what I've seen from this team. I think they found some confidence against the Rams, and they go out, they take some chances, some big risks, and steal one from the Detroit Lions.
All right. I'm right there with you, Austin. But but my heart's with some grit that I like in Detroit there. It's hard for me to bet against Dan Campbell, especially like I say, he ever since he's been there, they have bounced back and responded so well after losses and have been just played tremendous. So I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna take the Lions, but I would not be shocked if the Cardinals won this game, especially if Kyler continues to find Marvin Harrison the way they did last week against the Rams. And then obviously the main afternoon one, you have the Ravens at 0-2 heading to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Austin, this game is humongous for both sides. For the Ravens, you're looking to avoid an 0-3 start to the year. For the Cowboys, you're looking to avoid a 0-2 start at home this year. Really losing your last three if you include wild card round last year. So this is a big game for both teams, and it's going to come down to me to who wants this game more and who comes out being the more desperate team.
Yeah, look, after a week where this defense looked really, really good in the Cowboys, coming into the next week against the Saints where they looked really, really bad, I think this answered some questions about this Cowboys team that maybe we're having. That maybe they're still not built for the big moment, and maybe the lack of big offseason acquisitions is going to come back to bite this team. With that, I think the Ravens come out with some fury. They come out to prove a point, and we see another good offense take advantage of this Cowboys defense and catch them napping at home.
I just my reasoning for it, I'm with you. I'm going to go with the Ravens, but I just really think they're going to be the more desperate team, knowing they cannot afford an 0-3 start here. And I think that's the thing that gets them all the way through to a win in Dallas there. But now we got some primetime games. Chiefs heading to Atlanta to take on the Falcons here on Sunday Night Football. Atlanta, can they continue, Austin, their what was a phenomenal performance in a great comeback win over the Eagles? And for the Chiefs, like we talked about, how will the offense look without Isaiah Pacheco now for the entirety of the game? This is going to be an interesting one that's going to go down in Atlanta.
Yeah, I really like this game because we get to see obviously how talented this revamped defense looks for the or not for the Eagles, for the Falcons. But we get to see kind of what this Chiefs offense is going to look like for the next couple of weeks, or at least until they figure out that running back situation a little bit more. Um, but when I look at this game, you're going to see a Patrick Mahomes throw the ball a little bit more. But where do the Falcons really go and upgrade this team? In the secondary. They added Jesse Bates a year ago. This offseason, they added Justin Simmons. They've had AJ Terrell. This is a great secondary. And then to factor in linebackers like Deion Jones, who's an NFL vet, a leader on this defense. I like the Falcons in this game. I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons to pick Patrick Mahomes off 2 times in this game.
Right. Yeah, I'm right there with you. This seems like a good spot for Atlanta after that, especially with those injuries and questions for Mahomes. Like you said, that was my main thing. Like, if he throws the ball more, he's probably going against arguably one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, AJ Terrell, not to mention Matthew Judon. They acquired him. He's another good piece for that defense as well. Um, Even though they drafted Michael Penix, I still wish they would have gone with some pass rush. It would have made this even better for them. But yeah, I'm going to take the Falcons with you. And Austin, this is the start of the thing that I still don't understand why they're doing it. Multiple Monday Night Football games. Once again, I don't understand it. I get they want to try to get more in, but to me, if you have two bad primetime games on at the same time, it's double the problem for you. But nonetheless, Bills taking on the Jaguars, 6:30 on ESPN. Jacksonville looking for something good to happen. Hopefully, they're not at Trevor Bank Stadium this week, so sure we things can turn around there. And for the Bills, I'm saying this. I've said this to people, Austin. if we continue to get this level of Josh Allen, yeah, I might join Bills Mafia hype with you. He might be my MVP if he continues to play at the level he's playing at.
Yeah, man, I've been impressed with the Bills. It only took me hopping off the hype train for this team to really start to get going, which kind of hurts my feelings. Josh, how could you do it to me? But regardless, I like the way the Bills have looked. The Jaguars have just come out and looked flat last week, in my opinion. They didn't. It's like they were still hung up on the way they fell apart in week one. Uh, Fumble at the end of the game. Just this team has got to be better. It is talented enough to be much better than it is right now. This team should realistically be 2-0, in my opinion. They're not. I think they fall to 0-3. The Bills look good. They're playing at home in front of Bills Mafia. I think they might win this game by 14 or more.
There is no think with me. I am very confident the Bills will win this game by at least, I say, by double digits. I'm thinking that. I think Bills Mafia being at home, knowing how much fun it's been to watch them these first 2 weeks. I think it's going to be a great game for Josh Allen because this Jaguars team didn't do what they should have done. Instead of getting a new receiver, how about upgrading that secondary? You didn't do that. Josh Allen is going to make you pay for that. So yeah, and then our final one, Commanders at the Bengals here. Obviously, Cincinnati 0-2. They need this one. Washington coming off of the first win of the Jane Daniels era. This is an intriguing one. I'm not saying it's a great game, but it's an intriguing matchup and a huge one for Cincinnati as they hope to avoid an 0-3 start.
Yeah, I think Washington's kind of showed their ability. I think that Jaden Daniels is going to throw his first touchdown this season or this week because he just looks like he's getting better and better. Um, but man, this is a game that I just wouldn't pick the Commanders in. I think the Bengals, kind of like the Ravens, they feel like they got a lot to prove. They need to get a win here. They take advantage of an easier opponent. I don't think this game will be particularly close. I think we'll see a couple strong drives from Jaden Daniels, but I think overall the Bengals are going to get the job done.
Yeah, I'm going to take Bengals as well, but solely because I think this could be the start of a stretch. You take a look. They play the Commanders this week. You win that. You're at Carolina the next week. You play the Ravens. That will be tough. Then you're at the Giants. So you realistically could get right back into it with the talk of the best teams in the AFC if you get the win here, and hopefully that leads to winning three of your next games against obviously the Commanders, Panthers, Giants. They still have the Raiders and some teams down the line that could lead to even more. So yeah, I'll take the Bengals, but I think this will be very close. I think I would not be surprised if Washington came out on top in this game. But now, Austin, it is time for your bet of the week. And I want to congratulate you. You piggybacked off my Steeler under tradition here. Seahawks, again, a gut punch. It ended at -3. So I got a push actually this time. Didn't lose it this time.
That's
So it's
crazy.
absolutely brutal, Seattle. You I gotta stay away from. But Austin, what do you got in store for week 3 of the NFL?
Well, if you were listening earlier, I told you I think this game's going to have a lot of offensive explosion in it. I think there's not going to be a lot of defense. I'm going to New Orleans. I'm going Saints, Eagles over 49.5.
All right, like he said, I had a feeling that's where he was going to go. That's why I didn't say anything. I had a feeling that mine. Listen, I'm going to be betting Steelers under every week, so I'm not going to give that to you this week. But I'm going to be betting it every week, just so you know. For me, I'm going to roll with a spot here, and a man that's similar to him. I've kind of hyped up about them. Lions 8-0 against the spread in their last 8 games following a loss. I'm going to take the Lions to -3 to go in there and beat the Cardinals in this game. Again, no one bounces back quite like the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell. And I think they're going to be able to go in and beat what has been an impressive Cardinals team so far this year. But that is going to be it for this NFL episode of the Bold Take Podcast. If you haven't already, tune into the college football episode. Lots to talk about there. And then obviously, We're going to talk more football next week. We got you covered through the 12-team playoff, through the NFL postseason. And hey, you never know. We did it last year. We might mix in some MLB postseason in here. We mixed it in there last
Yep.
year. I will be picking the Brewers to lose no matter what. I can tell you that.
Me too.
Um, yeah, it's personal for both of us, but that'll be later on. But that is going to be it for this episode. That is Austin Hill. I'm Austin Wader. We will see you guys next week.